great. Well, a lot of exciting topics that you guys are working on. That's really great. Whether you are in macro or monetary economics, or whether you're doing ag econ, I think the way we write empirical economics is becoming standardized. So they're really focused on one kind of a standard model of writing an empirical paper, so I hope everybody will have something to learn out of it. Okay, let me take a few information about the course participants. How many of you have taken a course on graduate econometrics? Raise your hand. Graduate econometrics. Master's level or PhD level? Raise your hand. I see. So the rest of you did not take econometrics course. Okay, so there will be a little bit of discussion about identification. How do you identify, the causal effect of X on Y? So we're going to do a lot of discussions on that, so don't feel lost. Maybe we should have done this homework before. Graduate econometrics is a must for a course like this. But it doesn't mean that you will get lost, don't worry. So I think it's going to be okay, but that part, the identification part, requires a bit of understanding of some econometrics knowledge. But that's probably fine. Okay. Great, so I think we can get started. Please switch off your phones. I have a rule. And if I find your phone is beeping or you're sneaking on your phone, checking a message or something, I'll fine you 50 Rand. I'm serious. I have done it before. First offense, 50. Second offense, it will increase by 10 Rands. So by the end of the day, the money will be collected and given to charity. So it's a good way of helping the world and making sure that everybody focuses. Good. So peer-reviewed or scholarly publication is an important part of academic life. I mean, we all know that. So how do you define peer review? It's the process of subjecting an author's scholarly work or research or ideas to the scrutiny of others who are experts in the same field. That's a definition by Kelly and co-authors 2014. So what's the purpose of peer review? Right, peer reviewing articles. Well, for the scientific community and for the society versus for the author. So I'll discuss the author in the next page. For the scientific community, it encourages authors to meet accepted high standards in their field. You have to follow high standards when you write papers. It ensures that the claims made in the paper are warranted by research and interpretations are acceptable, not personal views. We're not opinion piece writers. In economics, we conduct research, we report the research exactly as it is, completely excluding our opinions. So to ensure that that happens. And it also provides input for governments, responsible authorities, and the industry. New policies, education policies, health policies are crafted based on research in many places these days. So poor research can have serious implications in general, but also more serious implications in some fields. For example, in medicine, engineering, if you advise a government, provide a new medication that has serious adverse effects without really testing those in the field or randomized controlled trials. So you're going to hurt the society. The same is true if you poorly conduct research on engineering stuff. Bridges and suspension bridges and buildings are constructed based on research as well. So it's very important to subject these work through peer review by experts in the field. But how about for the researcher? I mean, me as a researcher, I publish a lot of papers, but why is that? Well, first, we learn a lot from peer input, improved future productivity. Actually, after doing your PhD, very few of us go to courses. But if you continue writing papers and submitting to journals, reviewers give you some comments. Like, hey, by the way, there's this new test that you can do, mediation analysis. These are things I did my PhD 2011, but after that, so many things have changed. So I learned quite a lot from peer input, actually. So which means that it will improve your productivity. It's a way to learn and improve. It helps to avoid embarrassing mistakes, errors, and inconsistencies. Have you ever heard that someone's publication was pulled out after 5 years or 10 years after it was published? There were so many of these kinds of scandals. If you subject your peer papers for peer review, you will escape these kinds of embarrassments. It acquires prestige and impact in your profession. The Google citation is one important indicator of how productive and how awesome researcher you are. So it's very important for you. And also, on the big one that we should not forget is you use it too for promotion. From assistant professor to associate, from associate professor, from full professor. Peer review publication is an important component in many universities these days. You have to publish in good journals. So it has so many benefits. But despite its importance, the peer review system has been criticized for a number of reasons. So we'll discuss this a little bit in the research ethics part, which will be tomorrow afternoon or the day after tomorrow. Okay, it's been some compromised, some, there's always bad people in everywhere, right? So there were some bad peers that stole ideas from researchers. For example, you were in a certain medical research and you submit the paper to a journal and it comes to me and then I look at that, this looks a cool idea. Maybe we can do it pretty quickly than the other team. And then you hold that paper before you give the recommendation and then you advise your group to publish it. These kinds of things happened. So there is a risk of that, and there's ways to protect people being, in a state of violating the anonymity policy, for example. You should, if it is anonymous, that you're not supposed to Google who the author of that paper is. If you're doing that, you're violating the ethics, because the reason that you're told not to do that is to bias. You have to judge the paper as it is. So there are so many problems, but still the peer review system is important. We have to correct the problems, but still the method itself is important for all the advantages that I mentioned. Okay. So I designed this course to share my research and publication experience, drawing on sources produced by colleagues at different universities and research centers, and my own 14 years plus experience in writing and publishing papers. It was a lot of work to design this course. It was 2 years ago or something that we came up with this course, because I realized that especially in most of the African universities, this course is really either lacking, or there's a course called Research Methods, and that has got to do really nothing about writing a paper and publishing in these kinds of journals. So there were so many things that I said, I wish I knew this when I started my career, so I considered all those and tried to provide this for the next generation of researchers. That's the main motivation why I crafted this. And why do you have to trust me on this? Well, I published extensively in international peer-reviewed journals. Reviewed dozens of reputable peer-reviewed journals. Example, Nature, Journal of Development Economics, GM Experimental Economics, World Development. It was like more than 2 dozen journals I reviewed, and I learned a lot through that process. Supervised and mentored graduate students, MSc, PhD, and postdocs, over 20 in Gothenburg, and taught graduate level applied quantitative courses for 14 years. So I've been teaching the development economics course and also the applied econometrics course for the past 14 years. And visited some great universities like UC Berkeley, Brown, Davis, LSE. So I learned the way these people write is completely different. So I think their courses, for example, in some of the top universities like MIT, they're open, by the way. So you can go to the YouTube and search for MIT economics courses. So you can find the economics course for free. So you can take high-level course on whatever subject they offer. I think they have, 20 recordings by really Nobel Prize winners as well, some of them, like Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee, etc. So I strongly recommend that. And of course, I raised millions of dollars in grants and research grants. What are we going to cover? Well, why this course? What does it take to succeed in research? We'll briefly go through that and then immediately move on to writing a strategy. So I classified it into 4 or 5 parts, the whole course. The first part is a writing a strategy. How do you write a paper? The very basic thing. Some of you have already written and probably even published some papers, and then you can see that some of the things that we discussed will turn that upside down. Because the way that we write, in those Western universities is very different. And it has become standardized. So usually in a paper, when you look at an empirical paper, by the way, I'm using the word empirical, emphasizing it, because we're not covering theoretical papers. There are theoretical papers that people write, so that has its own style and then different ways and different sections of paper. But we're focusing on empirical paper, where you have a certain hypothesis that you want to test, and you collect data or use secondary data, or you conduct a randomized controlled trial or an experiment, and then analyze that data and write your paper. That's the kind of paper we're focusing on. Title and abstract introduction, literature review, description of the data or the experiment, empirical strategy or identification strategy, results, and then the results section is divided into, presenting your main results and then explaining the mechanisms, heterogeneous analysis, robustness checks, and then conclusions, and then appendix. These are like the components of a paper. We'll come to it right after the introductory session. Then we'll discuss about seminar and conference presentations. Why do you need to present your paper? And what should you do to interact with peers, get inputs from other people in conferences and seminars? How do you identify seminars? What are the presentation tips? Have you seen some presentations that think that, this is boring, I'm going to fall asleep? You've come across those kinds of presentations. So I will give you some tips to avoid that. Networking and interacting with peers. In conferences, how do you get the best out of, conferences? Very often when you're a young scholar, you focus on going out and partying, but it's good to party with friends, but also it's very important to talk to senior people, journal editors, some of them. Then what are the hot topics? I'm struggling to find this idea. I'm struggling to publish this paper, and the editor of this journal gave me this comment. How do you think I should address it? People would give you advice. That's what we call networking. And we'll talk about that. And then publication strategies. Maybe we'll go through that part pretty fast because I think the South African system is a bit different, right? You're not required to publish the paper, obviously. We don't require our students either, and also in some places people still write in monograph types of PhDs. Anyone who's writing like a monograph type of PhD here? You know the difference between a monograph type versus the article type? So the article type is we have like 3 or something, 4 freestanding, stand-alone kind of papers. The monograph is like one big monograph where the first part is like literature review, the second part is data analysis, and the third part is like, conclusion, whatever it is, and then you'll spend another 2 years, to squeeze papers out of that. That method is kind of becoming outdated. Many universities have shifted into the article-based system. But anyone who's writing a monograph, you're writing a monograph? Where? Here. Well, we have to talk to the people who get them up to speed, huh?
100%.
Let's say to them, guys, this is not 1990. This is 2025. Monograph, where is it? In Northwest. Okay. Yeah, I think we... yeah, go ahead. Yes, of course. Before you finish the PhD. Yeah. You see, now you can easily see that it doesn't make sense, right? Because if you're required to publish, then why don't you immediately write it for publication? You're wasting your time. So, but we'll talk about this separately, huh? And then what can we do to change it? We know if, by the way, something that I didn't tell you is I work at the University of Gothenburg. There are 2 positions. So I'm a professor at the university, and also I work for the Environment for Development. It's a capacity building network. We provide financial support for about 15 emerging and developing countries in the global south, 5, 7, or 8 in Africa, like Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania. South Africa is one of them, at University of Cape Town, Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana. And outside Ethiopia, we have China, Vietnam, etc. So have given this course for a few of those outside Africa and within Africa places. And we realized actually that limitation in some of these universities, and we pushed for a change. In Rwanda, for example, we changed it to article-based writing. I think in Ethiopia as well, they've moved to that system. So it takes time, but it will change. Everybody will converge at the end of the day. So we'll talk about publication strategies and how do you, what are the different types of economics journals? How do you prepare it for submission to a journal? And then rejection and revision. All right, so when you get rejected, what do we do? And when you are invited to revise and resubmit as well, how do you address your comments and things? So we'll discuss those briefly. Then the other big component is the research ethics part. What is ethics? So good research conduct. How do you do your research? You as a researcher have a responsibility to follow a protocol or a standard in high quality and then come up with trustable and reliable results and share them to the public. This is a responsibility for all of us. you will see that actually, we will discuss that, the research that you do does not necessarily belong to you. It belongs to the public. You have a responsibility to share it. Why? Due to the simple reason that you did not create that research. You relied on previous authors' work to create that. So you have also a responsibility to share your research and make it subject to peer review and scrutiny. But we'll come to that when we discuss that. So, and then good research conduct, ethics review and permit review. What are the issues that you have to consider when you do research involving humans? You might have heard about internal review boards. They're becoming very, very common now everywhere. I mean, if you want to go and conduct an RCT, you need ethical clearance. You cannot go and collect because of possible harms of people. To avoid that and the negative consequences, you need to have ethics review. And handling of research materials, and how do you keep data and confidentiality issues, secrecy, professional secrecy, anonymity, confidentiality, all these things. We'll discuss them. And then good research conduct too is you as a researcher, as a supervisor, as a teacher also have some responsibilities. I mean, might not be able to go through each and everything. We'll pass through these pretty quickly. When you do review for journals, there are also some ethical issues that involve. What are these ethical issues? When you review proposals by colleagues, you also have ethical responsibility to be unbiased and judge based on that person's, the scientific quality and the criteria, not by other factors outside, by ethnicity or, tribe, and all sort of those things. Then the most important part of this course, research misconduct. When is it that we say that there is a research misconduct? Scope and definition, fabrication and falsification, that's the biggest one. I mean, people falsify, completely create data out of thin air and write papers, and some very reputable people have done that. People that were respected. That's like the worst form of misconduct. Then comes plagiarism. That means using someone else's work and not giving them the credit. This is also a big offense. And there's a section that I've introduced recently on artificial intelligence and research misconduct. You're using ChatGPT. So what are the responsibilities? I mean, it's great. It offers a lot of opportunities for us and efficiency in reducing the workload when we write. But if you ask ChatGPT to write your paper and cut and paste it, that's a clear violation of the ethical guidelines. So we'll discuss that, and sanctions about misconduct and a broad perspective. So what are the sanctions? And if you found, plagiarizing, what will happen? Well, let me give you, there was a guy, his name is Kwan Choi. He is a professor in the US and, I don't know, still is there or maybe retired. He said that you should be grateful that the paper you plagiarized is not published. Because if it is published, you will pay the price. So you might have heard about a German defense minister a few years ago, I don't know, during Angela Merkel's time. The guy was in the office and someone pulled out his work and checked and he copied a paragraph from someone else. Just because of that, he lost his job, his reputation was ruined. So plagiarism can follow you 20 years after you wrote the paper, 30 years after you wrote the paper. So it's very important that we have a good understanding of what it involves and how to avoid it. The training method is going to be collaborative. We're here all to share insights and learn from each other, so we're all expected to contribute. We'll have some group work presentation of basic issues, which I will do, and then followed by discussion of cases and groups and reflections. The main course requirement is, of course, active attendance and group work. In the previous versions of the course, we took a longer time, like a week as a PhD course. So there were proposals that you have to develop and things to get course credit and things, but we're not going to do that. This is more of a short training. The key references, there are articles published in reputable general interest and field journals, mostly top field journals. I will share those in every section. I will show you. I think I haven't got the email, Foshi. I think I should get the email of everyone so that I can share it with them. Then For the research ethics part, they're freely available. The Swedish Research Council, that's the one that I use, but of course there are other different materials. The European Commission, the European Textbook in Ethics and Research, which is the electronic version. So these are the sources. When I will share all the sources, I compiled them all in a zip file, lecture notes, and those will be shared this afternoon once I got your email.